Hey guys, in this video, we are going to talk about 10 reasons that your budget may not have worked out for you in the past. And my goal by the end of this video is to give you some ideas for how you can set up your budget for success in the future. If you're new to my channel, I'm Kassy, and I make videos about how you can add 7 extra hours a week through streamlining your home. So if that sounds like something you need in your life, please subscribe down below and ring the bell next to it, and I will do my best to help you get those extra hours. All right, let's go ahead and get into the video. The first reason that your budget may not have worked for you is you may not have calculated your net income correctly. If you were basing your budget off of your gross income or your gross salary, things probably didn't work out the way you had hoped, because your net income is what you actually receive in your bank account, and the gross is what your company tells you that you make, but you never actually see all of that money. So there could have been a discrepancy there, and that could have made things not work out from the start. The second reason that your budget may not have worked out for you is you didn't track your expenses long enough. I recommend tracking your expenses before you set up your budget for at least 1 month, but often 2 or 3 months is better. Sometimes expenses can vary a lot from month to month, and if you track it for 3 months, you can see, is there a trend here? Do I need to track longer? Are there certain expenses that are all over the place? But you'll have a better starting point than if you just do 1 month of tracking. The third reason your budget may not have worked out for you is you didn't track your spending. So expenses are those charges that we get once a month for things like mortgage, or for things like our garbage or water or rent. Things like that I consider to be expenses. And spending is anytime you get out your credit card or your debit card, or cash if you're old-fashioned like that, and you go to purchase something in the moment. So anytime you pay for something on Amazon, anytime you order something online, that would be spending. And spending can really be one of those things that gets you into trouble with your budget because it's not as predictable. It can change a lot from month to month, and if you aren't careful, it can really derail your budget. And that leads us to the fourth reason your budget may not have worked out, and that is if you didn't change your spending habits. If you had a spending problem going into creating your budget, and that is why you were creating a budget, if you didn't change your spending habits, it's not going to work out for you. Having a budget is great, but unless you actually make some changes to stay within the budget and actually have that work out, it's not magic. You can't keep spending the same that you always have and expect your budget to change. So you may need to pull back your spending if sticking to a budget is something you would like to do. The fifth reason your budget may not have worked out for you is you didn't watch your budget. So once you set up your budget, it's not just a one and done type of thing. I mean, yes, for the most part, you don't have to keep creating your budget or anything like that, but you do have to watch it. You have to make sure you are within your budget, generally multiple times a month. I actually am not positive how often my husband checks our budget, but it's frequent. It's more than once a week, because he wants to make sure that we are in line with our budget. We aren't spending too much. We aren't going to be coming up short at the end of the month, and we're able to save what we want to save. So especially if you're new to budgeting and watching and tracking your budget is not a habit for you yet, set some reminders in your phone at least once a week. But I would honestly say if you're just starting out, 2 to 3 times a week would be a good place to start, because then you can really make sure you are on top of things and kind of catch things before they become a problem. If you are spending a little bit too much, you'll be able to catch it a lot sooner, as opposed to if you're only checking once a month, then you're going to have spent a lot more before you can catch it. So check often, at least once a week. But if you can do more than that when you're getting started, it will give you a better idea and allow you to course correct more quickly. The sixth reason your budget may not have worked for you is you didn't pay off your debt. If you have a good amount of debt, or even if you don't have a good amount, just any debt that you have makes sticking to a budget more difficult, because you have those minimum payments. You are kind of a slave to paying that off, and it takes time and dedication to pay that off. So you have to really stick with it. You have to be determined. You have to be sticking with your plan. And if you gave up before you got there, then it's always going to be tricky to stay within your budget. It's just so much easier to manage your finances once you have paid off your debt. The seventh reason that you may have struggled with sticking with your budget is if you didn't decrease your expenses. Decreasing expenses is a fairly easy way to have some extra money in your budget. I have a video on how to decrease your expenses and how to look at your fixed versus flexible expenses. This can be things like switching insurances, switching cell phones, or even going to a cheaper grocery store instead of a more expensive one. And I highly recommend it. We have saved a lot of money over the years just by looking at our budget, watching how much we're spending, and then saying, I feel like if we shopped around here, we might be able to save some money. And it's really cool because if you do this, you get to reap the benefits month after month. Especially if it's something like insurance or cell phones or even groceries, if you can save even $50 a month on some of those things, if you have $50 extra every single month, that is so helpful to your budget. So I highly recommend doing that if you have not done so. The eighth reason your budget may not have worked for you is if you didn't increase your income. If you need to pay off debt and you are already very tight in your finances, you may need to increase your income to make that happen. There are a lot of ways you can increase your income. I did a collaboration with Gabe Cox of Red Hot Mindset, and she gave us over 40 ideas for how to increase your income. And she was able to do all of those jobs without ever having childcare. So lots of ideas for how you can work from home or how you and a significant other can kind of stack your schedules so that you never have to have your kids in daycare if you don't want to, and you can still have that extra income. So definitely check out that video. I'll put it in the cards and in the description down below if that's something you need to do to stick with your budgeting goals. The ninth reason that your budget may not have worked for you in the past is you didn't stick with your debt payoff plan. You need to go into paying off debt with a plan. It's not an easy thing by any means. It takes a lot of time and dedication and work. You have to increase that income. You have to decrease those expenses. And you want to have, kind of like we've talked about before, you need to have a time frame that you want to complete this in. Otherwise, it could take forever to pay off that debt. So if you got off track somewhere, you didn't stick with that plan, maybe you wanted to do something fun with that extra money you were making instead of putting it towards the debt. Making yourself stick with your debt payoff plan will go so far in helping you stick with your budget in the future. And the last reason that you may not have been able to stick with your budget is you didn't build up your savings accounts. Savings accounts are the most exciting part of building a budget, but they are so important. Life happens, and let's face it, these are not certain economic times that we are living in. People are losing jobs and inflation is going like crazy, but having those savings accounts set aside will enable you to stick with your budget even when things are difficult financially. It'll allow you to get your feet back under you if something happens, and even stick with your budget through a difficult time. So it is very important to have those set up, because then if something does happen, and maybe something happened, maybe that is why you weren't able to stick with your budget. Maybe you lost your job, maybe you got injured, something like that. As soon as you have your feet back under you, pay off your debt and build up those savings accounts, because that will serve as kind of a buffer for when things like that happen and enable you to truly have financial security. If you are interested in learning the 4 steps to adding 7 extra hours to your week, then you should join me on Monday for my free live workshop. There is a link in the description down below where you can sign up for that, and I would love to see you on there. You can bring any questions that you have, and I would love to answer those live for you. So I hope to see you on the workshop, but if not, I will see you on the next video.